Hey, my name is Rowan Smith and I want to welcome you to the Training for Trekking podcast. Now, this is the world's very first podcast which is entirely dedicated to helping you train, prepare and conquer your upcoming hike, trek or mountain adventure. So once a week, I'm going to be giving you quality and practical information on the subjects of physical preparation for trekking, dealing with altitude and nutrition on the trail, so you can know everything you need to be doing to have the best chance of a safe, enjoyable and successful adventure. So now you know what you're in for. Let's get into today's episode. All right, hello, ladies and gentlemen. So today we are answering the question, is it worth training while you're on the trail? Now, this question was inspired by a conversation I had with a hiker just the other day. And she was sort of talking about this big through hike she had ahead for herself. So she had about a month or two on the trail or something like that. And we were chatting, and we were only chatting about 6 weeks before she was heading off. Now, I typically like to train with hikers a little bit longer than that. You know, I feel like if we can get 10, 12, 16 weeks worth of training, we can do some fantastic things. But sometimes I do have these conversations with hikers who may only be 4, 5, 6 weeks out from their adventure. Maybe they've only come across my stuff. Maybe they've only realized they need a little bit of help. Maybe, you know, something else has been getting in the way when they stop them actually taking on board a training program. And these conversations do happen. And we were chatting about a training, about a trip and everything coming up. And she was like, you know what, I know you like to train for multiple months at a time. Do you think it's worthwhile, or is there anything I can be doing when I'm actually on the trail to keep this training moving forward? And so I thought it would be worthwhile covering this because I do see it actually pop up every once in a while. It's not a super common question, but I do see it pop up, particularly for the through hikers. And essentially in this situation, I would typically say when we're actually on the trail, there's not really much point in trying to do specific training. You know, we go on these adventures, we go on these hikes, purely to enjoy the experience, to have a good time. And personally for me, I don't really think training on the trail is really a necessary situation. What I would always say is your strength development, your endurance development, your aerobic development, put your effort into that before the trail. Try to build that up as much as you can before you actually head off. And then essentially when you're on the trail, there's only two things you really need to consider in regards to fitness, in regards to conditioning, in regards to keeping you moving forward. Now, number one, when you're on the trail, is just the manipulation of your daily miles or kilometers. So for through hikers who may not have a set schedule, just manipulating how much you're doing each day, depending on how you're feeling. Now, if you feel like you're coming into this trip a little bit underprepared, then starting off with some shorter days and slowly ramp that up. It's common sense, but that's kind of what you want to be thinking about. Then you get to the stage where you start to feel like, oh, you know what, actually, I feel like maybe I'm getting a little bit cooked. Maybe I'm a bit tired, fatigued, and then, taking a 0 day or a couple of shorter days or whatever it may be. That's priority number one. And that's the main thing you want to be thinking about in regards to your fitness, in regards to your, training in quotation marks when you're actually on the trail. The other thing that I typically recommend people think about when they're actually on the trail is just sort of self-care, in the sense of, the things that you do at the start or the end of the day, just to sort of help the body feel good, help it recover maybe a little bit more, help it sort of, relieve a few aches and pains or whatever it may be. And I think that's the other thing to put quite a bit of focus into. So the start of day routine might involve doing a little bit of, a couple of stretches, 2 or 3, before you head off. It might involve doing a little bit of rolling with a, water bottle or a cork massage ball or something like that. 5 minutes at the start of the day can be a nice way of going about it. And at the end of the day, you might do a few extra stretches, you might do a little bit of rolling routine, or just sort of touching up certain trouble areas with a little bit of self-care. Now, in all honesty, when you're on the trail, they're the only two things you really need to consider. And then obviously nutrition, but that's a whole different subject. But in the whole context of training on the trail, I do see people sometimes talking about, hey, I do some squats and some lunges and some workouts on the trail. I do a little core routine in this. And if you enjoy that, absolutely go for it. But in all honesty, for most people, it's probably not necessary. It's probably not going to be super beneficial. And it's more, I would say, just a pleasure thing. So if you are sort of, I'm in an iron before a trip, is it worthwhile keeping things, doing a little bit, while you're on trail? Answer is, I would say don't worry about it. Put your efforts, put your focus, put your time into developing those things before you get on the trail, in the weeks, the months, before you head off. And then when you head off, just go out and hike, have a good time, manage those kilometers or those miles, as necessary, perform your self-care, and that should get you through. So hopefully that gives a little bit of insight to maybe anyone who's ever wondered about that question. Hopefully it helps a few people out and sort of gives a few people permission not to have to worry about this stuff when they're actually on trail. So I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Now, if anyone was wanting a bit extra information around maybe those warm-up routines, those end-of-day routines, or anything else we sort of chat about today, what I'd like you to do is absolutely love if you can come and find me in the Training for Hiking and Trekking Facebook group. Now, inside that group, I'm happy to share some videos around what I meant, some instructions, some tutorials, or whatever it may be. So if you want to find that, that's the Training for Hiking and Trekking Facebook group. You can find the link for that in the show notes below. So thank you so much for listening today. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you got a bit out of it, and we'll talk to you soon.